Oi, oi, all right. I'm Grant. This is Doodle Review, working to give you non-stop daily music content on reviews on all types of music. This week, focusing on quite a few new releases. We're going to be talking about the latest albums from Rancid, Krule, Killer Mike, Water From Your Eyes, and M Sage. This week has been a mad one. I've been attended 2 shows with a third one to come on Saturday. I saw hardcore newcomers Koyo rip it up in Kingston on Tuesday. Then I saw the, at this point, legendary Bronx absolutely demolish the New Cross Inn. That show completely brought me out of pit retirement, so I'm feeling it today. Very achy, very sore, but it was worth it. And then another show on Saturday going to see Rival Schools. So yeah, big week on top of all of the classic work, trying to do reviews and trying to live a life as a normal human being. But anyway, that's enough chit chat. Let's get to it. Other than An Outcome the Wolves, I'm yet to hear another Rancid album that really resonates with me, and this latest is sadly no different. If I could describe Tomorrow Never Comes in one word, it would be uninspired. All members, bar bassist Matt Freeman, just for the most part sound like they're phoning it in. Freeman's bass has always been a significant part of the Rancid sound, the juxtaposition of his complex and sophisticated lines creating a positive friction against the loose and simple bar chords offered by Armstrong and Fredriksson. His playing is a highlight on every track, to be fair here, but particularly New American and Eddie the Butcher, although that latter squanders it with a really awful chord progression. Thematically and lyrically, there is just nothing remotely engaging that the band hasn't done time and again before. And it's not even that trading in cliches is inherently bad, because in fact the first song and title track of the record, Tomorrow Never Comes, is exactly that, but also happens to be like the only highlight in the set, purely because the energy and conviction is there, but it just feels like they burnt it out in the first song. I'm really not feeling it. It was a 3 out of 10 for me. Space Heavy is London artist Archie Marshall's 4th album under the King Krule moniker. And I think it's apt that supposedly the majority of this record was written on the move, going back and forth between homes in Liverpool and London, because I've always found Marshall's music the perfect soundtrack to being in a transient state. Going back to the record The Ooze, which I would blast in the dead of night, driving in the small hours, the reverb of the guitars and drums just like filling the space between that time and the street lamps are like rolling over the car in waves and filling the dark with light before receding back into the darkness. It's just the perfect soundtrack, and the space in between is actually the overarching theme of Space Heavy, describing the physical and emotional distance between both places and people when you're going through life. That these melancholic meandering tunes can so eloquently capture that feeling of hopeless longing without lyrics, I think is testament to the band surrounding Marshall, who is so clearly locked into his vision and understand just what to play, and most notably what not to play to summon that required emotion. Standout players in particular for me are Ignacio Salvadores on saxophone, whose playing on When Vanishing is emotive but tasteful, understated and never overplaying, as well as drummer George Bass's feel on If Only It Was Warmth, which is so perfectly measured it carries a song that could so easily fall off kilter with the wrong amount of playing in either direction. It could be said that the album meanders a little too much between the more traditional songs like Seaforth and Hamburgerphobia, but to me, these passages just serve to bring the theme to life all the more effectively, representing the transient or that transit between those destinations on the record. I think this is another fantastic record from a unique artist that only seems to get better as they mature. It's a solid 8 out of 10 for me. Love it. Been a gap of over 10 years since Rap Music, Killer Mike's last solo album, and this is due in part to Mike forging a creative partnership with the producer and rapper LP during the making of that record that actually led to Run the Jewels, a collaboration that would ultimately deliver a huge boost to the careers of both critically acclaimed but commercially underground artists up until that point. The appeal of rap music back in 2012 was its embrace of classic hip-hop sensibilities, of lyricism and heavy bombastic beats, which stood actually in stark contrast to the trap sound that was emerging at the time and would ultimately come to define this era of mainstream rap. Being proudly of Atlanta, the birthplace of trap, Mike managed to balance this tribute to the old school without ever discrediting or disrespecting the sound of his community. And that balance is something that would continue throughout Mike's output with RTJ over the following decade, and indeed is carried over onto his latest solo release, Michael. This time utilising a range of producers and featuring a wide variety of artists, Michael doesn't have the singular idiosyncratic sound of rap music, but it does allow for an engaging concoction of tones that continue to lionize that classic hip-hop sound, but without ever feeling like a pastiche. Instrumentally, I think it's important to give a shout out to Damo Farmer, whose bass playing is consistent throughout the entire album. His deep groove and interesting fretwork both make for an engaging listen, but also weave together the different productions, like the dub-like reverby horns of No ID's Run to the classic soul sounds of DJ Moon's Down by Law. Lyrically, this is a deeply personal album for Mike, and he delivers his bars with a conviction that can't be faked, and it gives a vitality to many of the songs on the album. Mike's gift, though, is that he can utilize this conviction to slip stray lines past you that, for me anyway, don't align with my personal viewpoints. He's always been fiercely libertarian, and for the most part, I do enjoy hearing rap that covers some alternative viewpoints and topics, but the Brokeback line, I think, needed a rethink. I don't believe him to be homophobic. This just feels like a lazy insult that he's too proud to backpedal from, and I'm not really vibing with that. But that blip aside, Mike's confessions around teenage relationships, familial drug use, and his relationship with his mother are really touching and thought-provoking. I think the record could have used some tighter editing with a few tracks after the midpoint that don't feel essential, but overall this is a strong album from an artist that has unapologetically strong views but an endearing sensitivity. So for me, I'd give this a 7 out of 10. Water From Your Eyes is an indie pop act I'd never heard of before, but in the relative drought of new music around that kind of late April to mid-May time, I thought I'd take a chance. Everyone's Crushed is the 5th record from Rachel Brown and Nate Amos, who are a really interesting duo that seem to have the capability to write traditionally successful pop music, but choose to go left field and produce their songs with weird, wonderful, and sometimes challenging instrumentation. Barley is one of my favourite songs on the album, with a shuffle beat at its core that is infectious, and that over time it layers on more and more disparate elements to make an exciting blend you'd be hard pushed to find other artists able to replicate. Out There follows this with a song that has an amazing bass tone, with a combination of these tense, blown out drums that makes for a fun track built around this tension and release. But it's somewhere after this point in the record, though, where the atonal, dissonant elements peppered in start to move from quirky and interesting to flat out annoying. I'm all about abrasive and weird noise in my music, but much like the Yeji record from earlier this year with a hammer, at a certain point that abrasiveness can just tip over into irritating, and I think that irritation is heightened when the core song is actually really good, like the title track we have here, Everyone's Crushed. I dig the overall aesthetic and mission of Water From Your Eyes, and will be keeping a lookout most definitely for other work from them, but here too often neat experimentation just becomes hard to listen to and actually undoes the great songwriting at the core of this album. So for me it's kind of 50-50. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. There's definitely stuff I enjoy, but sometimes it's annoying. Work of M. Sage was one of my favourite lockdown discoveries a few years ago. I came across him through his regular collaborative albums that came out through Cached Media. Those records were a perfect exercise in free jazz and ambience, and could be either calming or deeply interesting depending on how you wanted to engage with the music. Paradise Crick is a solo venture this time from Sage, playing all the instruments himself, which mostly revolve around but aren't limited to synthesizer. While all the hallmarks of what I came to love about Sage's role in the collaborative albums are present, overall I've found this album a little harder to engage with. It often feels too busy to be fully calming, but sometimes not as interesting or dynamic if you want to engage on a deeper level. There are definitely moments of beauty though. River Turns Woodley is a wonderful mix of relaxed acoustic guitar, processed drums, and haunting synths. Crick Dynamo is a track built around delicate piano, the jazz chords being a bed for electronic improvisation, and I continue to be impressed by the artist's ability to paint a sonic canvas, even if this record doesn't always hit the highs of his other works. Okay, that's pretty much it for this week. But as usual, keep a lookout on my other channels because I'm going to be dropping recaps and terrible footage of the shows I attended this week. Going to do a vinyl update. I will do a vinyl update at some point. And I've also hopped on the whole Threads hype where I'm going to try and post more spontaneous, just random music thoughts. So give a follow there if you fancy it. Nice one as usual for watching it. See you next time and cheers.